is watching this video right now, I just want to say thank you for your encouragement and support to finally sit down and make this. I'm going to try to make it as simple and as short as I can, with as good details, just to, give the story of what happened with my girls. We did experience 2 losses within the past 3 years, and I've never really spoke to anyone about it unless they were there with me or they just checked in with me. It's a very hard subject to talk on. So I just wanted to just talk about our late miscarriage story, which happened in March of 2016, and then our stillbirth that just happened March of this year. I am married. I've been married for 5 years. We've been together for about 10. We do have 3 daughters together, and one of them is here with us, thankfully. She is 6. She'll be 7 in February. And after her, we went to have Juliet, which was the late miscarriage. And 3 years after Juliet, we were about to have Sophia when we lost her to stillbirth at 26 weeks. Back to Juliet, it was about November, the end of November going into December of 2015. We had actually taken a small trip to Lubbock for the weekend. And just typical, having dinner, a hotel. We really didn't have much planned, but just to hang out. And we did notice that I was acting a little strange because we went to go out to dinner, and my husband, of course, asked if I wanted to drink, and I was like, no, I don't feel as if I should. I feel like I'm pregnant. We ended up finding out we were pregnant. And so at around 8 weeks, I went and saw my doctor. He gave us a due date for August 23rd of 2016. Yes. I did have 1 miscarriage before Juliet, but it was very early, maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks even, but nothing farther than 6 weeks. I know that. And then coming around 17, I was 18 weeks, I believe, maybe like 18 and 2 days or something. I noticed a lot of discomfort in my hip area, and I just wrote it off as normal because that's what happens when you are growing a baby. Your body stretches. But it was different. I was just lying there, and then I suddenly felt as if I were having contractions, but not too bad, just enough to be like, I don't think this is normal to be feeling this early on. I called my husband and I let him know that I think I could feel myself going into labor with her. And so he came home right away. Him and my brother carried me to the vehicle to get me to the hospital. And all the way up there, I am in so much pain. I am just sick. I want to vomit. From one moment to the next, I started just feeling all these sudden symptoms. And of course I'm crying because I'm freaking out, and I thought I could still feel the baby moving. Mind you, we didn't know what we were having yet because we were waiting until the 20-week mark to have the anatomy scan and then do a gender reveal. But we lost her at 18 weeks. And so got to the hospital, I just kept saying I thought I felt her the baby moving, so I assumed everything would be okay. When I got up there and they hooked me up to everything and checked me and such, they let me know that I was already dilated, and so she would soon be coming after. There was nothing to stop it. I was already fully dilated. We couldn't do anything. And so they came and told me what was going to take place, that I would end up going into labor, having her. She would still be alive because she was still developing, but she, of course, had a heart. She didn't have lungs yet, so that's what stopped her from being able to be saved, is how I would put it. Had she been 22 weeks, she would have had her lungs. She would have probably been in NICU, but she would have been developed enough to make it. But instead, because she had not developed lungs yet, she ended up passing shortly after I gave birth to her. And that was one of the hardest moments of my life because I'm scared. I didn't understand because my first pregnancy was no complications, minus some few preterm labor scares, but not enough to where if I had her early, it would be bad. So with Juliet, it was completely different. And I remember just feeling so offended how quickly everything was going on. I had her, and of course they were super, sympathetic as much as they could be. I'm sure they see things like this all the time. But I feel like we had just gotten in, and then it was already time to be going home. We let a lot of our family just hold her and, just say their goodbyes to her. And then they asked us if we wanted to bury a burial or if we wanted to cremate her. And in the moment, I was just so offended that, or they would just keep her and we wouldn't know what would happen. Of course, I was just like, no, I want a full burial for her. She deserves that. And so we had a burial for her. I do remember going up to the funeral home to arrange things for her and getting to see her before she got dressed and laid to rest. That was probably one of the hardest parts, just hitting me that I was just 18 weeks, about to be 20 and close, and finding out the gender of our baby, to then just having to bury her. I really didn't want any more kids after that. I already had our daughter, so I just really wanted to focus on her. Even though, as much as I tried to say I didn't want children, in my heart, I knew I still did. And my husband, of course, he would always tell me that he wants like 5 children. He still says that till this day. After losing her, I was just so traumatized that I just knew or feared that if I ever got pregnant, the same thing would happen again. Well, after we had her and I went to follow up with my doctor, he did let me know that in future pregnancies, I would just have to get a surgical procedure called a cerclage, which is just a stitch along the cervix to keep it from opening sooner than it needs to. And so that alone gave me a little bit of hope, but not too much. I was on birth control for about 2 years, 2.5, and I just was really just trying to protect our heart. About 2 years passed and we did a lot of healing and a lot of hope came through, and I just wanted another baby so bad that I started regretting being on birth control. And so I just tried to find out how soon I could get it removed. And they let me know that I had to have a yearly checkup before I could get it removed. And so in the process, my doctor was like, well, you're already here. If you want to, you're okay with it, we can go ahead and just take care of it for you if you're sure. And I do remember hesitating, like getting there. I was hoping they would ask me, but I remember hesitating, like, no, because we're still so brokenhearted over Juliet. We never forget about her. We talk about her, we would still cry about her. And this was 2.5 years later, and it still felt like yesterday. So when he asked me, I was a little hesitant, but just deep inside, I knew we could try again. We could handle it. And if it happened to happen again, we were strong enough to. So we got it removed, and it took about 6 months for us to get pregnant. When I got pregnant, I couldn't believe that I was, just because right after I got it removed, I had what Google or other pregnancy pages refer to as a chemical pregnancy, which means like I'm assuming, and I will look this up, that your body just produces the hormones and gives you a false positive, but there's nothing. I did go to a doctor when I thought I was pregnant and it was negative. But that was hard because I was already to a point where we really wanted another baby. So fast forward into September, and I just randomly had this feeling yet again. But I would always tell myself, it's not true. Just don't act on it. It's just a feeling. But for some reason, as a couple of days went by, the feeling of I could possibly be pregnant again would not get out of my head. So we had a Halloween party to take our daughter to, and right after, I stopped at the store and grabbed a pregnancy test, a little digital one. And I was already preparing myself. This is going to say no, so just let it go. And then who knows, better luck next time, next month. And to my surprise, it said pregnant. I still couldn't believe it. I knew I'd be very early. And I was already like having symptoms, but I still didn't want to believe them. I went to my 5-week scan, and my doctor could only see the gestational sac, but did give me progesterone to support if the baby was going to stay. So I started taking progesterone once a night. And I want to say it was around 8 or 9 weeks. We were moving from our apartment back into my parents' house, and when me and my husband had went back by ourselves, I had started bleeding. And so I just freaked out, and I just assumed that I was losing her. The next day I called the doctor. They asked me to come in for some lab work to check my HCG levels and to let me know if it was going to be that they were rising or lowering to prepare for miscarriage or not. And so I went that day. They told me I could go. And I remember driving up there just trying to tell myself, like, you can do this, it's okay. To my surprise, the next morning, they called that my levels had jumped tremendously. And so they wanted me to keep going in to make sure that the baby was growing, to see when we could see a heart, and to make sure that my levels were still rising. So we did that for about every 2 weeks until about 10 weeks, I believe. We were finally given the estimated due date because the baby was measuring to length. And so our due date was June 11th, 2019. We prepared for it. I did have to go and get the procedure done to get the cervix cerclage to prevent what happened with Juliet again. I got that done. It was a breeze. My doctor was so shocked at how well I was recovering and how much my body was just doing very well with this pregnancy. And there was no signs of distress. Even when I went to go get the surgery, my cervix was fine. We honestly just opted for it just to be safe. So we did that. There's a leaf blower. And with having the surgery, I had to see a specialist every 2 weeks, I believe, just to measure everything. And the first appointment I had with the specialist so happens to be the anatomy scan, because since I was seeing a specialist, my doctor suggested we just do it all over there to make sure the baby is completely doing well and measure the cervix and all of that at once. And so me and my husband, we couldn't decide if we wanted a gender reveal or not by family. And when I got there, I just felt like I just needed to know as soon as I could. And so we had the anatomy scan, and as we're watching on the screen, I just knew that this baby was a girl. I knew it. Of course, I assumed beforehand, but just seeing her, I knew she was a girl. We got to see her long legs. We got to see her hands. They measured her activity, her heart, the chambers, her brain, kidneys, all of that. And she was perfect. Then we found out she was a girl, and I just started crying because I knew she was a girl. 2 or 3 weeks after the anatomy scan. And my anatomy scan was 23 weeks since I had to wait a while. So this one was close to 26 weeks. That my second appointment with the specialist to just watch her and check my cervix would be. Well, that scan they had told me would probably be 45 to an hour long, because they were going to probably measure a lot more, check her fluids, check her umbilical cord, check me, check my cervix, make sure everything's okay, but like really okay. Went in and we checked. I got to see her again. My cervix was looking great. They did tell me, though, that there was a tad bit of concern, just that it did look like it was opening a little bit. But in the event that it did, she was viable to be born, and she would probably spend some time in the NICU, but they would be giving her shots, steroid shots, and just she would have help to develop even if she had to be delivered. earlier. But my doctor or the specialist had said that it would be best if we can make it to 27 weeks if there was any concern. And so saw her umbilical cord looked great. They measured the temperature, the flow, the blood flow, and all of that. The night of March 8th, the morning of March 8th, actually, I woke up and I just did not feel her. I felt like literally like the life was taken out of me. I just was really sad, and I didn't understand why. I assumed it was hormones, and I honestly just assumed she was asleep. But I was already kind of learning her, so usually when I was asleep, she was awake. And if I ate or anything, she was always moving. And so that morning, I just felt really weird. I tried to take a bath. I ate some food. I drank cold water. And I just remember thinking, she's not moved in a good couple of hours. Like, something's wrong. I didn't know how long I was supposed to be waiting or how long was too long to be concerned. And so I didn't call the doctor. I didn't call anybody. I just told my husband. And when he got home, he, of course, tried to get her to move, and, of course, told me that whatever I felt was best, go in hospital or whatever, that we could do that. Because I did have to be monitored one night around 23 weeks because I thought I was going into labor, but everything was fine, and she was just super hyper, perfect heartbeat. And so my husband was like, we can go back again. It's no problem. You know, don't feel silly for going to the hospital because you're concerned about the baby. Like, I just want to try a little bit longer. Maybe something's just off, or maybe I can't feel her. Maybe she's in a weird spot. So I went and laid down, and I tried to move her. Usually at this point, if we would poke at my belly, she would kick us. And we sat on my bed for a good 5-10 minutes, and I didn't feel anything. And usually that's when I feel her so much. And I need to tell my husband, no, we have to go to the hospital. Something's wrong. And so we got there. And of course, as soon as I tell them, they start getting everything set up. They put me in a room. And then they come in and they try to put the monitor on me, the band that wraps around your belly when you're pregnant, to check their heartbeat. And they couldn't find anything. And when I was just in there at 23 weeks, they put it on. And even though she was kicking it, you could hear her as soon as they put it on my body. When they put it on, I already knew. But I was hoping that them telling me that it could be she's just in a weird spot, that was all it was. I was just so impatient. I didn't know what to do. So in that, I was just being still. And then they could hear something, but it was my heart. And I kept telling them, that's my heartbeat. That's not hers. They kept trying to give me reason and kept trying to find it. And by this time, I'm already getting sore just from them moving and pushing that little heart detector on my stomach. I'm just so tired. And when they left me, my husband just looked at each other like we knew what we were about to be told. And in that moment, I'm just hoping that I'll feel something and just, oh my gosh, okay, she was just in a weird spot. Well, they came back with this ultrasound. It was pretty old, this ultrasound machine, and they could see her, but they're like, well, we can't see the heart or anything. It's an older one, so we're gonna get another one, and with a tech it's a little more advanced. And so she came in and she started looking, and of course they don't keep the screen at you, they keep it to themselves. And my husband's asking questions and she's just not answering him. And she's moving, and I can feel every time she would push, I could feel Sophia. And that's when I knew she's moving because she's pushing her, and that's because she's lifeless. And my husband's trying to ask her questions, and she kept saying, I can't answer that. We have to wait until a doctor gets in. And of course, that alone is frustrating because we just want to know what's going on. And then as she's willing it out, my husband asked her again. And as she's walking out, my doctor comes in. And I guess they had already told him, but they wanted to make sure with that scan. And he said, all right, hun. what seems to be that there's no cardiac movement. So I'm gonna take another look and you can look with me and we'll see what we see. And I was like, didn't say anything. And then he put it on my belly, but I couldn't see her heart moving. And she was the hyper one of the three. She was so hyper all the time. And I just see her lifeless body on the screen. And I looked at my husband and he just shook his head no. Then I just see tears fall down his face and I just lost it. I don't remember what happened next. I just remember my doctor crying and just saying he was so sorry, that he did everything he could to not let this happen again. And he didn't understand, but he was so sorry. And then I just remember them all leaving, and I just went crazy. And excuse me, my husband just let me and just held me, and every time I move I could feel her, and it just didn't feel real. And then a lot of our family started coming in, and of course it was just hard for everyone. I still had her. They'd given me medications. They removed my stitch and told me she would come anytime, just to let them know when I felt pressure. And the hours just went by forever. Before you know it, it's almost noon. And I tell my mom, I feel like I'm gonna have her. Can you please call them? And they came in immediately. I was already pushing her out without even realizing. And so I had her. And I remember them saying, how is she 26 weeks? She's so long. And it's always that first moment of, I want to see her, but then I don't, because she won't be alive. And then I got to see her, and I was just so proud of her. She, of course, was bigger than Juliet, but she looked so much like her. And when Nova was born, she had long feet like her dad. She had his nose, his lips. She looked so much like Dom. And I just remember I couldn't believe that was my life. Like, I was looking forward to the moment we were going to have her, because all I had wanted was another one. And then that just got taken from us. I didn't really do what I see a lot of other people do, like bathe their children, take pictures. We took pictures, but not more professional like I wish I would have with both of them. But I just remember in those moments, like, I just wanted her to wake up somehow. I know I couldn't hold her enough, and nothing was going to bring her back. So we got discharged, and the next day we went up to the funeral home. We got to see her again and spent almost an hour with her. We just cried with her and told her we loved her, to tell our sister that we miss her too, and just to watch over us. We ended up getting her cremated. It's so sweet when they put them in the urn. They put her inside of a teddy bear, and I slept with her for a couple of nights within the past 3 years. Has been very, very challenging. I'll never know why, and even if I did, it wouldn't be enough. But I do just hope one day we will get to see them, and I hope one day that we will get to hopefully have another baby and bring them home. But until then, we've just been trying our best to get by, be surrounded by people that we love, and make the most of everything, because it's so short. And whether it's a loss late in life, early in life, middle, a loss is a loss, and it's painful. So I really just wanted to make this video to come on and just share the story that I've never really been able to share. And hopefully be able just to keep just carrying their memories on with us everywhere we go and everything we do. And I finally had the courage last night to look at their pictures and go through my pregnancy pictures. And it wasn't as hard as I expected. I still cried. I still told them I just missed them so much. But life does move forward. I know that in the moments that I lost the both of them, I came to YouTube to watch videos of similar stories and just comfort in knowing that I'm not alone. And so I wanted to be able to do the same for anyone out there that has experienced a loss or is going through a loss and just needs that hope to know that you're not alone. I am with you. I have been there, and I know how hard it is. So that's my stillbirth and late miscarriage story. I would love to connect with any of you who have gone through it or maybe just have questions. I do have an Instagram, which I'll link in, and hopefully we can connect through there and just talk. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys again soon.